where those two things might meet. I have a feeling that Jay, on occasion, when he's teaching classes at the Cumberland School of Law and whatnot, he has an occasion to address those types of aspects of the law and government and our own personal belief structures and systems. Jay, before we go any further, I have a question for you.
Yes, sir.
How's it going, Jay?
This one's pretty easy, Matt. If I were any better, I would be Donald J. Trump.
I know you are.
I thought Dr. Carr, so much of it was so good. I didn't watch much of it. But I thought a couple of things that struck me. One, the pastor that imitated Trump was hilarious.
That was funny. It was good.
And then Ben Carson, he says, first they tried to ruin his reputation, and he's more popular now than ever. Then they tried to bankrupt him, and he has more money now than ever. And then they tried to jail him, and he's more free now than ever. And then they tried to kill him. And the truth of the matter is that Donald J. Trump probably feels more alive today than he ever has in his life. It's remarkable.
No, it is. I mean, we have to pause every once in a while, and I did this yesterday on the show, Jay, and remind ourselves that this is history that we're living through. I mean, I know that every day history is made in some form or fashion for some people, but this is a moment in time that will never be forgotten in the history books, in the history of the United States of America. What's been going down this week?
Well, and I wish I knew who it was that asked this question. He was some kind of reporter somewhere. He was talking to a couple of the people involved and said, Matt, let me ask you a question. Is this the most viewed miracle in the history of the world? And then there was just a silence. It's not my place to get here, but if this is not the hand of God, Matt, then I have no other explanation.
I believe it, and I believe in it, and I just can do nothing but, and I lean on you for spiritual talk every now and again, Jay, when we're on the golf course and matters turn a little more serious.
Yeah.
And I just want to ask you, and all of you listening, just bear with us for a moment. But, I mean, Jay, I have a hard time. I believe that. I believe that but for the hand of God, Donald Trump would not be here. It's also a little bit difficult for me to go there in a full-throated way because of the death of Corey Comparator, because what are we saying to his family? So the hand of God was there for Donald Trump, but the hand of God took your husband and your father. And the books have been written about this, and I have asked this question a lot, and I've asked my professor about it a lot, and there's no real satisfactory answer, man. So what you're getting at is, why do bad things happen to good people? And I've asked that question a lot. When my wife died, I wondered that. When my brother died, I wondered that. And I talked to pastors, and they can't answer it, man. We're not smart enough to know the answer to that. No, I mean, we don't get a chance to understand those types of things on this earth. Obviously, there will be a time for us to try to understand them, perhaps at another time. And, I guess you just have to lean on that faith. And frankly, I thought, and I'm not here to question or to suggest that Donald Trump didn't do anything right last night. I think everything was pretty dead on the mark last evening. But I was reminded as he was giving his speech and Corey Comparator's firefighter uniform was in the background, that Donald Trump was given by, and this is the way that I thought of it in my mind, Jay, that Donald Trump, God gave him a guardian angel that day. And that guardian angel is Corey Comparator. And that's the way that in my mind I kind of look at it.
Yep.
Let's get to some legal matters in just a moment. We've got a quick timeout to do for news at 1:31 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Always good to catch up with our good friend, legal correspondent, life consultant, and gambling buddy, Jay St. Clair, and we'll continue doing so. If you have any questions of a legal matter or anything else, get on the horn. 615-737-9986. It's the Matt Murphy Show on Super Talk. Super Talk 99.7 WTN, Matt Murphy. And the Matt Murphy Show continues. It's 1:38. You are always welcome to be a part of the show on the membersnutrition.com super text line. I was communicating with 3571 there on the super text line regarding some of our comments involving religion and the government moments ago. Thank you for the correspondence, 3571. I always appreciate it. 615-737-9986. If you have any questions, legal or otherwise, for our man Jay St. Clair, it is, after all, Friday on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Jay, I know this is not normally our arena to jump into, but given the historical nature, before we get to a few questions, Randy's got a tax question. Mike wants to ask you a question about non-competes, and several others on the Members Nutrition Super Text line. Jay, what your thoughts on Saturday and just the aftermath of Saturday? My goodness gracious, history in the making, and literally millimeters away, thanks to God's hand and the turn of the head, millimeters away from a very, very, very different conversation today.
Well, that's right. And, what we've learned so far about the breakdown in the security is very disturbing. I don't believe it was an inside job, man. I mean, if they wanted to kill him, they could have killed him. I mean, so I don't, I get why people go there. But I deal with the government pretty much all the time. The EOC, the NLRB, OSHA, and people like that, they are pretty incompetent people, man. So I heard somebody say a long time ago, the government is really only good at two things: taking your money and killing people.
Mm-hmm.
Then they weren't very good at protecting Trump, but boy, they killed that guy in about 3 seconds. The government is just not very good at doing things, and this is just an example. This kind of reminds me of pulling out of Afghanistan. I'd say probably the same people that pulled the plan the withdrawal from Afghanistan, planned this. But then so that's kind of my first thought about that. And then, yes, we saw a miracle. I mean, that's just my personal view. It's the hand of God. But then I'll say this, and I'm not an expert in this, you are, but it's the absolute best outcome politically for Trump. I mean, the best outcome, man. If the Secret Service had done what they were supposed to do, they would have got the guy before he ever fired any shots, and no one would have really even known about it that day. And right, and it didn't make a little bit of news, but it wouldn't have been any big deal. Politically, it's or the guy could have shot and missed, and that would have been bad. But I mean, for Trump, it's the absolute best thing politically. I'm saying just purely politically,
right?
To get shot, but not so much that he couldn't just instinctively. This is this is so much of it remarkable. I heard it said once that character is what you do when you think no one's looking.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is not exactly apropos here, but it's close. Character is what you do in tense moments when you don't have time to think. And what we saw Trump do in the second or the minute after that was the real Donald J. Trump. They wasn't staged. They wasn't planned. Nobody talked about that. We saw the real Donald J. Trump in that moment, man. And I think that's what makes it so fun.
Well, and last night when Trump was relating his thoughts after he ducked down and got behind the podium, and then the Secret Service came and surrounded him and got on top of him. And apparently several other people have that have talked to him personally, related this story that he was mystified by why nobody ran, nobody left.
Correct.
And he realized they did not leave because they were concerned about him.
Yeah.
And he said in that moment, and said this last night, that in that moment he needed to make sure that they knew that he was okay, and he needed to make sure that they knew, in that second and in that moment, that he was going to be there to fight with them and for them. And I do agree with you. I think it's an incredible testimony to an individual's character. And, perhaps in those milliseconds in the aftermath of the moment, you don't really realize. And I probably think the weight of how close it came descended upon him later. I don't know. I don't pretend to know how he thinks. If you and I knew how he thought, we'd be worth a lot more money. But,
Well, but what we're both saying is this, man. In the moments after being shot, I think he knew that he'd been shot. His first thought was about other people.
Right.
Wasn't about himself. It was about other people. Other people were concerned right now. Let me assure them. He wasn't thinking about himself. It's just remarkable.
I agree. I mean, no, it gives you chills just even speaking about it. All right, let's get into a few telephone calls here. Randy is first up today with Jay St. Clair, has a question or a thought about tax law. Hello, Randy. You're on with our man, Jay St. Clair, on Friday.
Hey, how you doing?
What's up, Randy?
I was calling Mr. St. Clair. Maybe you can help me, and it's pretty long-winded. If it's too long, let me know. I can leave you my cell phone. Maybe you can call me back and help me because I really need some help. But
all right, let's get it
back in 2003, I started my own business, and as business goes, you always have competitors. And one of my competitors was spreading falsifications about or defaming my business and my employees and me and my partner as well. And I had enough of it in 2014, and I hired an attorney. And this attorney wound up basically taking me and a lot of his other clientele for granted and using our money to do what he wanted to do with, as opposed to filing the lawsuit cases that he needed to file. And you probably know who I'm talking about. He's currently sitting in prison for 35 years for what he done. But that being said, there was some tax papers of mine had gotten to this attorney for him to make copies of, so he could show a timeline of how much money I was making in the beginning as opposed to how much I was making in the end, as I was, my business was progressing. And my tax papers got seized and held for documentation or proof or evidence that, he was doing what he done. And they held him for about 9 years, and they had, for 4 years, but they had about 9 years worth of my tax papers. Well, when I got them back, I had just had quintuple bypass surgery, and I sat down at my kitchen table for probably 3 or 4 weeks at night after working all day. Hadn't even been out of the hospital a month. And
hey, Randy, yeah. I mean, just for our purpose, God bless you for all of that. But can you
send me an email? But just what's your bottom line?
Yeah, what's the question?
Well, all the taxes came back. I filled out all my taxes. They were all right except for 2012. And the IRS is saying that I still owe them like $30,000 for 2012. I didn't make but $85,000 that year. But I can't, that's the only year was 2012 that they say I owe them any money for, and I can't explain to them enough. I've already tried to explain to them several times what happened.
Have you gotten a lawyer?
Here's what I want you to do. You can get me on the internet. Just look for Jay St. Clair. I'm with send me an email, and then I'm going to help you. This is a little bit more complicated than we can solve on this radio show today. So you just reach out to me.
It's extremely complicated. I'm sorry, I don't mean to bust everybody's bubble not talking about Donald Trump. I love Donald Trump. He's my favorite.
You're okay, Randy. You're okay. That's what we're here for.
I have been trying to get to you for weeks to try to talk to you about this because I can't afford to hire an attorney.
Well, Randy, listen.
We'll take care of it.
Yeah, listen to me. Listen to me here, Randy. Before I say goodbye,
yes,
JAYST period, and then CLAIR. You look that up, and Jay is virtually the first guy that pops up, Littler Mendelson, and you'll get all of his information. Okay.
So J Saint ST period CLAIR.com.
Well, if you type that into your Google machine, Randy, you'll be fine. Yep. You just type that into the Google.
A lot of money for my name to pop up first.
47 minutes after the hour, Jay's with us for a few more moments. And we did, too. 2714 says we didn't play Jay's intro music. We did. We played it a little bit late. It's my apology for doing so, but we had a lot going on at the beginning of the hour. Let's go to Mike's in Tullahoma. He's got a question. He's asking for a follow-up on a subject that we brought up several weeks ago. Hello, Mike.
Hey, how you doing, Matt?
Good.
I think it's fairly brief and things. When you and Jay were talking about, why Trump stays alive and firefighter goes down, leaves his kids and stuff, I always struggled with the book of Job, how in the world a man could lose everything and all the animals and all the family. So the one thing I learned after losing my first wife, I spent 2 years trying to figure out why I was still on earth. But I counseled my daughter-in-law when she got breast cancer. The one thing I learned in that several years of trying to get my brain back was when it comes to God and what things that happen, don't ask why. Yeah. And the next thing is turn to him and not from him.
Wow.
And since then, I've had professional counselors, pastors and stuff say it's remarkable that I picked up on that. I don't know. It's probably God planted it in my brain, but that's how I counsel people. We don't know how that supercomputer came up with the fact of missing Donald Trump and taking out really a hero in the local community. So that's my 2 cents on it.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
And you saying you lost your wife, I think you probably understand the words I just said.
Absolutely. Now that hits hard with me because I know exactly where you're coming from.
Jay, let's take a quick time out. We'll get back to a few more calls and questions. Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Back in a moment. This caller writes in from Wisconsin. That's where the phone says it's coming from. 7010 says, my parents died without a will. One child alive. It doesn't say my parents, Jay. It says parents died without a will. One child alive, 2 deceased. Are grandchildren, great-grandchildren entitled to a portion of the estate?
Yeah, I'm assuming it's in Wisconsin. Every state's a little bit different, Matt, but the answer to that is yes.
Okay.
Because let's say they had 3 kids. One of them's living and 2 of them's dead, but they had kids. Well, the grandchildren take a share that would have gone to the kids. And it depended upon the state. You know this. I'm sorry I even have to say it. It will either be per stirpes or per capital. And I know you.
I know very well because Jay knows. And for those who don't, I had to go through it with my grandfather, and it was it's always a pain in the proverbial tuchus. Hey Matt,
the answer to that question is yes.
Okay. Hey Matt, could you ask Jay if there are any updates on the non-compete issue?
There was a limited injunction entered, as I recall. It's not nationwide, so I think that regulation may have taken effect now. I think that's right. I'm embarrassed. I should know that with certainty. We hadn't had a lot of chatter about it. I hadn't had a lot of clients asking me about it. So I'm embarrassed to tell you I can't give you a 100% certainty answer on that. But let me look that up because I know this is a matter of great interest to you. You've asked about it several times, and I'll do my homework, sir, and be full prepared to talk about that next Friday.
And finally, Jay, can President Donald Trump legally put the Army on the border without any poop emoji from Congress? They used the actual poop emoji, Jay, when they asked this question. So that's why I said poop emoji, because that's what they used.
Oh shoot! What's the commie? There's this hilarious movie. There's the commie posse.
Posse Comitas. I think
Posse Comitas Act that says that they're not supposed to use the Army to enforce, civilian law. Mm-hmm. There's this great movie with Jim Rockford in it. I think it's called Tank, And so anyway, he gets it, and he's having a problem with an army base. He steals a tank. And the guy, and he goes to law enforcement and says, well, you got to help it. And he said, well, I can't do it because of the, what's the word again?
Posse Comitatus.
Yeah, Posse Comitatus Act. And he mishears him. And he said, are you calling me a blank communist? It is hilarious.
I think there could be like a national declaration of emergency, which would give the president the ability to call up National Guard troops. But
yeah, he could finagle his way. Well, I mean, here's the deal with Biden. You just do it. I mean, right? I mean, what you just do it. I mean, Biden's just not enforcing the law. You just go do it.
Agreed. Jay,
what are they going to do? Sue him?
Yeah.